One. Hello, listeners. It's been a long summer, and we're very glad to be back to get the chance to talk to you. And I don't say we to mean the royal we. I say we because I've got a guest with me. Ashley, could you introduce yourself to us?
Hi, you guys. My name is Ashley Hampton. I'm a senior this year at Lander. I'll be finishing up in December, and my major is history, and I also do an international studies minor.
You're also a music major, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I
So can
am.
you tell
So
us?
double
Yeah,
majors,
that's impressive.
and also I do an emphasis in piano performance and music. So
Oh,
yeah,
excellent. So, person of many talents.
yeah.
Very good. So, the main reason I wanted to ask you to talk to us today, the subject is that you did a very interesting internship this last summer. So, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay. Well, I actually did internships, so I
Oh,
will.
internships. That's right. That's
So
right.
yeah, so I mean, I will talk about the first one first. So the official internship I did with the history department and everything was at the Anderson County Museum in Anderson, South Carolina. There, I did a lot of curatorial work with the curator Destin Norris. Um, it was basically just typical curator duties and everything, but it was a lot of fun, and I received academic credit for it and everything. And it consisted of me writing weekly journals and also turning in a final book report and paper about some of the historical artifacts and information I found out about Anderson, South Carolina, and the county itself. So.
Right. So, and what can you tell me? What was something interesting you found out?
One of the cool things that I found out was actually that Amelia Earhart, back I believe in the late 1920s and 30s, had actually landed at Anderson Civic Center, in that area. So she actually met the mayor and met a couple of the townspeople and everything. But that was actually like a huge event that had happened back a long time ago and everything, where Amelia Earhart, had landed. So I thought that was a really cool, fact, because you just don't think of
Yeah.
celebrities coming to a small town like this.
Well, just as an aside, we had the Smithsonian a long time ago sold pieces of fabric from famous airplanes, and one of them was one of Amelia Earhart's airplanes. So it was only like $20, so my dad bought it. So we have a
Mm-hmm.
framed piece of Amelia Earhart's airplane. One of them, she had many.
Mm-hmm.
But excellent. So can you tell us a little bit, like, what would a typical day of interning at the Anderson Museum be like?
So the overall, one of the things that I really did like about Mr. Norris and everything was that he kept it pretty different, interesting, and fun. Like we were really hands on and everything, but he would mix it up every day. So it wasn't just me like behind the computer screen or always just looking at artifacts. Sometimes we were going out into their archival library and everything and picking out certain artifacts to put out for a museum exhibit and stuff. Some of the days we were just doing extensive research online about one of the exhibition panels that we're about to do about the Dixie Leagues, baseball teams around the area, and the textile leagues. Um, Also, too, just like, housekeeping work. Like, I never thought I was going to be cleaning out an attic before
Right?
and
Yeah.
all that stuff like that and everything, which was, it's different, but you need to know that and everything in the sense
Mm-hmm.
of, like, because that is part of their duties and work is keeping things clean, nice, and looking presentable for the museum and stuff. So we just did a wide array of things and everything, but one of the things that he really did keep it was interesting for sure. We always did kind of different stuff, but the basic duties was just um, writing exhibit panels, prepping and setting up exhibits, and picking out artifacts for those exhibits.
Oh, excellent. Like, what kind of artifacts were you working with?
Oh, okay. So the last exhibit that they had presented out there and everything. It was one for I think he was like a weightlifting contestant and everything, and he had won a lot of records and everything. I think he was an Anderson native,
Wow.
so we were messing with a lot of his medals and like his little I guess bench press and things like that, so we had to move those out of the way. So he was basically teaching me how to
Oh
like
my gosh.
handle them with care, and also to taking down like the basically the exhibit itself, so like the little glass panel and everything like that, and telling me like how the ADHA, like they have certain guidelines about their like how their exhibits should be shown and everything, so they have to
Right.
be this high off the ground and this certain amount of lighting and stuff. So he was teaching me how to work the lights and everything like that. So I thought that was really cool.
So did you find that your experience in musical performance did that impact this at all then?
Um, Well, not necessarily. Well, I did tell them that I was a musician and everything. So then that's what made him interested because they get a lot of donations. So they actually had a couple of donations in the back they hadn't cataloged yet in their system. And it was one of these signed banjos
Oh,
from one of
cool.
this like local like towns and members and stuff. So I was able to catalog that and everything. So I was able to see a couple of musical instruments in that way. But so that's kind of how like my musical background tied into that. But that was it. But
Oh,
it was
that's
pretty
really
cool.
cool. Well, you said internships, right? So
Yeah.
should we have what's another internship you did?
Okay, so the other internship I did actually was at the Clemson Area African American
Okay.
Museum. This was more for just like the benefit for myself, just as a fun something that I was interested in already to begin with, because I feel like you always should try to do something outside of like school that you're interested in,
Hmm.
or you feel like that pertains to you in a certain way, and that to me, of course, pertained to me culturally with my cultural background and everything, because I wanted to find out more about the local history of African Americans within our community, and it focuses on African Americans from the upstate. So there I did a lot more administrative duties. I was typically at the museum by myself, which was a lot of a different pace from what I had at the Anderson County Museum, because I was always there with Dustin. Kind of, he was always shadowing me and mentoring me and helping me. But there, I had to kind of, step up and actually act like an administrator and everything. So a lot of times I was at the museum by myself, and working on projects and exhibits that they were going to propose for the next following year. So it was just basically me learning how to talk to guests that came in, and having to record guests and having to answer phone calls, and record like the daily like visitors and things like that. So that was really cool.
Excellent. What kind of was there any particular exhibit you found interesting there?
Um, what was one? Okay, so because they had several ones. One of them that was pretty interesting was they were talking more and detail about the Fort Hill plantation,
Hmm.
and that was one of the plantations that the Clemson founding fathers owned. I don't know, it was particularly John C. Calhoun's. I believe it might have been his. And actually, they were going into detail about some of his wet nurses and
Oh,
some of the. But it was really interesting because also too, I didn't know this, but like his plantation was actually so huge that he actually had his own jail imprisonment system
oh my gosh.
there. So like they actually had one of the jumpsuits from like the prison like demonstrated out there and stuff that they would have had one of the slaves wearing. So not only like slave brutality, but being in prison too, like you're a
Right,
prisoner.
right. Yeah, just the
So
systematic violence that
yeah,
was carried out.
uh-huh.
Oh goodness. Well,
So
how do you then? I mean, if you have things like that, how did they balance out to make this not just terribly, what can I say, soul crushing experience? I mean, that's
oh,
how do you
there was
balance that
a
out?
lot of uplifting stuff at that museum actually. Like they talked about, because actually the museum itself is the old schoolhouse for the Calhoun Elementary School, which was one of the first black segregated elementary schools that was started up in the late 1940s, I believe.
Okay.
So they kind of try to introduce that when they first like you come in and everything. But they bring in exciting things, like they have a lot of arts and crafts that like they have some missionary donations from Liberia and everything they had presented up,
Okay.
that some missionaries from the community and area, the Phillips had came and donated that. And they talk a lot about Obama, a lot about Martin Luther King, and just overall general black history as well, that's like uplifting, like, oh, look what these prolific leaders in the black community did for us and everything. But like arts and crafts from like the little kids, like they had them look up like black inventors and everything, and
Right.
like put like them on little CD cases of where they'll like decorate them with the talent or invention that they made and everything. So it looked really kind of really creative and fun, almost kind of like a community center setup. So
Well, it's interesting you made that last point, right? Because
yeah.
museums have such an important role in the local community,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like this one maybe more so than perhaps others.
Yeah. So this one, like, well, particularly they're trying to work on getting a lot more community involvement, because, like I said, they are strictly kind of right now voluntarily ran. So the presidents there, Mr. and Mrs. Kemp, um, they're not historians in general. They don't have a historical background, but they grew up in central South Carolina from that
Right.
area. So they pretty much just run the museum off of the back of their feet. But they really do try to keep it communal because, like, they will offer special, like, they'll offer events that are dedicated towards getting the community out and just gathering them together necessarily. So, like, I remember they were having like a potluck they talked about they just had recently, and then they had a hat derby that they did where they had like the black woman come out and basically decorate hats and everything, and talking about how African Americans were involved in, like, you know, derbies, horse derbies and stuff, and comedy nights, just things like that, I guess, to just kind of get the community, all sectors, out to enjoy and then find out stuff about the museum along the way with it. So
Oh,
yeah.
excellent. Wow. Very cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm hoping that people who are listening to this will say, wow, Ashley did some really awesome stuff. I want to do that too, and I want to succeed. So could you tell us a little bit first, how did you find out about these opportunities and how did you get them, right?
Just simple, just research online. You never be afraid, in a sense, to just kind of put yourself out there and just to look, Google online what type of internship you're looking for, like in a particular study and emphasis. Like if you're looking for African American, you know, museum or whatever, type Google search, you know, African American museums and everything. And I mean, we even have one in our local community with the Benjamin Mays, you know, little museum and area. So you just never know what you'll find. And then also to just, you know, my best advice to you would be just to go out there yourself and see what the museum was like. That's what I did with especially with the Clemson Area African American Museum. I personally drove down there to Clemson first and everything, and, you know, wanted to introduce myself to them and everything. I was like, hey, I'm interested in kind of, you know, working at your museum and stuff. Let me see what it's about. So you know what you're also getting yourself into too, because you have to realize that they are catering to you just as much as you're catering to them. So you're supposed to be getting some benefit of the way, you know, see if it's a right fit for you and everything. So yeah, just don't be afraid of using your online resources. Also use your teacher resources, because they're also very well knowledged and everything like that. And it was actually Mr. Figuera, that told me basically to try the Anderson Museum, my local museum in my local town, and everything, and be interested in that and everything, and see if they were offering a position, which they were. So that made me, you know, choose that one.
Excellent. Excellent. And of course, you know, getting the internship is important. Doing a good job there, leaving a good impression is also important. So you have any tips about, you know, when you're actually doing the internship, what should you do or what should you not do?
Okay. Most definitely listen to your mentor or your
Right.
you don't you, I mean, you don't know everything when you're going in. Like with me, I didn't know anything about curatorial work at all, really. Besides, just what I kind of just looked up, like, what is this position online? What does a curator do and everything? But basically, besides that, I didn't really know exactly what a curator did. So just able to actually see, like, Dustin work, and, you know, just having him explain things to me first, and then just, like, following his, you know, shadow and basically working behind him and doing, like, the same thing. That's how you really work the best and everything. Treat it like a job. I mean, they really, and that was one of the things that they did remark to my aunt later on, because she came down there to see one of my exhibits I put up about the AKA sorority chapter there, because she's an AKA herself, and they were saying that they were really impressed by my professionalism, because you know, I would always show up on time.
Oh, yes.
And I was willing to, you know, stay afterwards, and I made sure, in a sense, like, I at least got the main task that he would advise me to do done before I would leave and stuff like that and everything. Even though he gave me other job duties and tasks and everything to do, our main job was to work on the exhibit itself. So I made sure I got, like, my panel done by, like, the end of the day, you know, and everything and stuff, and then told him, like, you know, I did this and everything like that and everything, and he'll be like, that's good, so you can go now. So
Very good advice. And just so you know, you've used the term panel a couple times. I'm not exactly sure what that is.
Okay, so, like, the panels, I mean, like, what they use, the printouts of
Okay,
the
right.
that they use for the exhibits and everything. So we're basically typing those out first in Microsoft Word, and then later on they got their graphic designer Miranda to basically, you know, professionally like put them in like a publisher system
Okay.
and everything, and then like print them out, and just like I guess the panels you see like in exhibit like museums typically when you're like
Right. Right.
reading the scripts off the wall. That's what I meant by that, but I don't
Okay.
know if they have a more specific
No, I
name.
think that's the correct term. I was because when you first mentioned, I just thought of like a little like caption sign, but this is quite a bit more
Yeah,
involved.
yeah.
That's really cool. So it sounds. I mean, one thing that sounds to me interesting about public history is just how many different things you have to know to do it right.
Yeah, because even with him or like that and everything, when I first went there, I got the impression that the curator's just behind the scenes. They're just
Right.
the one that's just building stuff and making stuff and everything. But he has to be really well versed too in the sense of communicating with people and do a lot of administrative and bureaucratic stuff because if a visitor comes, for example, and wants to get information from their research room, which was the Roper research room and stuff, he has to usually be the one that to answer them and tell
Right.
them what they have available at the museum and everything. And he was just really well knowledge and versed, and he was just like, yeah, there's a lot to it because you can't just be good with your hands. Of course, you have to be, good with your brains. Like you have to be well versed in the sense of like what is going on at the museum, outside the museum, and the community in case like someone wants to come in with a research project or like, oh, I offer you a grant to do this for us and everything. You have to have some type of background idea about what they're talking about or what they want to do. So
Right. Oh, excellent. One thing I'm just surprised. I was waiting for you to say, "Oh," and then we had like a party for the public, and they had me play piano during the party. I was waiting for that, but I guess they didn't have you do that.
Oh no, not at it. And I was really hoping that we would have been able to go out to one of the Dixie League baseball games because the kids still have tournaments there
Right.
in the area and everything. But it was actually going to be a week after I left and everything and stuff. So but yeah, I really wish I would have been able to like go out there and see them kind of like advertise their exhibition at the game and everything. So I could have went and so they could have came to the museum and actually be able to see like some of the kids that are participating and actively seeing what's going on in the Dixie League itself, like come and enjoy it. So but yeah, I didn't get to play. I'm sorry.
And of course, when you mentioned that, I was immediately thinking of Harry Carey and him singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and I was thinking of you playing on piano "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," which I think would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't have mind me playing and everything like that.
Right, that
but
would
yeah.
be cool. Well, so you've had these two really cool experiences. How do you think this is going to affect the rest of your life? Like, does this, what will this experience do for you?
I just definitely have learned more in the sense of how I guess to be a more applicable historian because when you are, and I guess I believe in the historical field and everything, there's always constant new information out there and you're always learning like new things and stuff. So just information about Obama and the Fort Hill plantation, especially when I was over there at the African American Museum, that was just really intriguing to me because just probably about 10 to 15 years ago and everything, that information about like the plantation system and like his wet nurses and stuff was probably not out there, but now it's like out there and everything and talking about and then just about a couple of years ago the psych sit-in that happened up there at Clemson University with the black student organizations about Tillman Hall
Right.
and places like that. It's just that just really, because I wasn't really well informed about that and everything, but that's something, that's significant that did happen within our local area and stuff. And just, I feel like overall, I don't know, I just gained a lot of knowledge, I feel like, but I
Right.
don't know
That's
how
cool.
to describe.
Well, and are you thinking you may want to make a career out of public history, like museum work, or this will be a hobby, or?
Most definitely, for sure. If I do not pursue a career in it, I'll definitely keep it up as a hobby because I definitely feel like it's very important for you to be involved in your local history that's happening around in your area because by doing so, I feel like you're being a part of history and you're making a difference in that way by actively, helping people understand it and present it and, inform them about what's going on. Not just people from outside, but in their local community because there's a lot of people in the local community that just don't know certain things that have happened, so, yep.
Excellent. Well, I have one last question. So, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to, or anything you want to say before we stop?
Well, I would like to give a really big thanks to just the whole Anderson County museum staff themselves. Actually, one of the alumni here now, her daughter graduated from here just this spring. Miss Lupero, she's one of the education administrators there, and she was just so sweet herself too and everything. Because I helped her with her American Girl um, little activities she would do every third Saturday there, and the Amelia Earhart exhibit, that little activity she had for the little girls in the area and stuff. So just all of them. Dustin, he was such a tremendous help, and he was so nice, which I feel like is really hard to find sometimes
Right.
for the mentor administrator, because I was expecting him to be
Right.
very, but he was really nice. And also Miss Beverly Childs too, and everything, because I admire her hard work and the effort that she puts into the museum every single day and everything. And also the Kemps at the African American Museum, they do a tremendous job for being volunteers and not having any type of historical background, in the sense of helping making that museum thrive as long as it has. So
Excellent. Well, and thank you all for taking such good care of our student. Oh, that's the Koreanist in me speaking. Thank you for taking care of this person. Well, good deal. Well, thank you very much, Ashley, and thank you all for listening.
Okay, bye.